Hello, and welcome to Author Showcase, a production of the Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. I'm Nicole Georges Bennett, and on this edition of Author Showcase, we'll be talking to not one, but two of Dominica's giants on the culinary scene, Daria Eugene of Cooking with Daria fame, and Mayma Raphael, aka the Dominica Gourmet. So we'll be talking to them about the writing process behind their published cookbooks and why they're on the forefront of championing Dominica's cuisine to the world. But before that, let's get to know these two ladies a little better.
Officially christened as Marie-Josée Daria James, Daria is popularly known as Daria Eugene. Formerly trained in information technology, management information systems, and computer programming, she worked in corporate Dominica in areas of information technology, management, and marketing for 15 years before beginning a new career in the tourism field. Her legacy remains as team leader in charge of automating the Dominica Water and Sewage Company, DOWASCO, from manual to a fully computerized system. Daria has always prided herself in the numerous varying interests that have occupied her spare time. She says, "I don't know what boredom is. I consider myself a jack of all trades and a master of none, and I get involved in anything my hands tell me to." Daria comes from a large family of 7 siblings, along with her parents, a cousin, and a niece. Of the 12, there were 8 women, and like all Caribbean girls, Daria was expected to spend a fair amount of time in the kitchen. While she says her mother was not the most creative cook, her meals were always tasty and nourishing, and she taught Daria invaluable skills such as being organized and tidy and ensuring that every dish was presented and looked the best that it could in order to entice anyone to dig in. Daria says her eldest sister, Amarette, however, could make anything taste good and never lacked creativity. Daria remembers their father buying Amarette a very big, expensive-looking cookbook with large, glossy photos and interesting recipes. He could also get her the ingredients she needed to try out. Daria said, "I must give Amarette credit, for she took me under her wing." Daria attained a grade B at the CXC in General Food and Nutrition, Meal Planning, and Food Preparation, and once out of high school, she added catering to her list of interests. "This was the foundation I needed to launch my Cooking with Daria brand," she says. Cooking with Daria is a hands-on, fun-filled cooking experience for cruise and stay-over tourists and local guests that has since 2005 been featuring the best of Caribbean cuisine. Cooking with Daria's shore excursion has consistently maintained 5-star ratings for almost 2 decades. Over the past 2 years, Daria has added traveling to cook to the list of fun things that she likes to do. Last year, she did a week's immersion French pastry course in Paris, and in the summer of 2025, she completed a week's immersion course in Italian cooking, followed by a week's immersion course in Greek dessert making in Greece, all with a view to expanding her repertoire to offer new options to our locals. Mayma Raphael is an accomplished author and senior content designer whose work bridges culture, creativity, and technology. Born in Dominica, Mayma's early life was steeped in the vibrant flavors and stories of the Caribbean. She later moved to Canada and then the United States, experiences that have enriched her perspective and inspired her storytelling. Mayma is the author of 2 children's books and the celebrated Dominica Cookbook, which highlights hundreds of delicious Caribbean recipes with a special focus on Dominican cuisine. Through her writing, she shares the rich culinary heritage of her homeland, inviting readers to explore and celebrate Caribbean culture. In her professional role at Meta, Mayma serves as a senior content designer, where she plays a pivotal role in humanizing the Meta family of apps, including Facebook and Instagram. She crafts thoughtful, user-centered content across push notifications, email, SMS, and other communication channels. Beyond writing, Mayma develops comprehensive content guidelines that drive quality and consistency, ensuring Meta's communications are clear, engaging, and aligned with the brand's voice and tone. Her work helps define how Meta and its family of apps deliver meaningful, seamless experiences to billions of users worldwide. Mayma's unique blend of cultural storytelling and strategic content design reflects her passion for connecting people through authentic narratives and exceptional user experiences.
Thank you very much, ladies, for providing me with your bios. I do have to make a point of correction. So I apologize to Daria because her name is actually pronounced Daria and not Daria. So, Daria, please accept my apologies and welcome, ladies, to the show. We're so thrilled to have you. Please feel free to say hi to our viewers and our listeners.
Daria, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
My name is Mayma, and I'm so grateful to be here with you this afternoon to chat more about my book, as well as Dominican culture and cuisine.
Ladies, thank you so much. So first of all, congratulations to both of you for joining the culinary archives of the Nature Isle. We are so thrilled to have you here, as I mentioned. And I have to say that I remember that my first cookbook was The Art of Cooking by Caribbean Cooking. That's right, by Yolanda.
Who doesn't have one, right?
Oh, well, you know what? My mom gave it to me when I was a young bride because she knew I was going to need a lot of help in the kitchen. So I'm sure a lot of people have a similar story. So you have now joined that noble tradition, and I want to congratulate you on doing so. And I just want to also take a moment to introduce my co-host, who is Sam George. He's also the producer for the show. So Sam, why don't you say hi to the folks?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nicole. And it's always a pleasure working with you. And so let me say also good afternoon to our guests, Miss Eugene and Miss Raphael. Thank you for joining us here on Author Showcase on the Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival. Let me just take a moment also to acknowledge those of you who are watching and listening via TDN Network and as well as the Write-Tukubuli YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Write-Tukubuli and TDN Network on YouTube, TDN Network 1 on Facebook, TDN Radio Caribbean and TDN ENT, and on Instagram, TDN Radio Caribbean, and of course, TDNTV.net. So I know that's quite a bit to remember. So when I get an opportunity, we'll remind you. But thank you once again.
So Mayma, we're going to start off with you. So you mentioned in your bio that you grew up in Dominica. I'm wondering, is there a food memory that you have from growing up there, from being a child? Is there a food memory that you have that is really significant to you, something that's influenced your path?
Sure. Thank you for this lovely question, which is certainly going to have me go down memory lane. I do have a wonderful memory of growing up in Dominica that's emotionally tied to food. I grew up in the scenic village of Tebow. That's in the north of the island. It's between, I would say, Portsmouth and, Vieques and Pebos. And it used to be a fisherman's village when I was growing up. And something that I connected with the most in terms of food was sauce. Yes. And not because I love to eat sauce, but also because my mom was considered the sauce lady of the north. She made the best sauce. She made foie chine and also pig feet. And we would have to sell sauce every weekend. That was our chore, because it was, my mom would get the pig feet from Roseau or Portsmouth and, have it put in the pressure cooker the night before and get it tenderized. And then she would make her water. It was a whole process. And I think being on the front line of that experience certainly heightened my interest in food and connecting with people, because as children growing up in the village, this was one of the chores. It was a high level chore that we did, and it allowed us to communicate. It gave us the experience of entrepreneurship. It also humbled us, because this lasted until our teenage years when we were even going to school in Roseau, and we had to go back to the country and sell sauce to ensure that we had spending money, which would support our academic, experience in Roseau. So sauce was a critical part of growing up. It brought in that connection, like I said, between the community and my family, as well as allowed me to craft, to see how my mom crafted her sauce production and emulate it. And I think this is one of my strengths when it comes to cooking. And just people love my sauce. And I have to say, I have to give a lot of credit to my mom.
Wow, that's fabulous. And I think sauce is a childhood memory for a lot of us. So, Daria, I'm going to come over to you. So, in your bio, you mentioned that your mom and your sister Amoret were really key in influencing your culinary journey. How do you think their influence helped to shape you to be the chef that you are today?
Okay, well, correct, my mom was not the greatest cook, but she had so many other wonderful skills. Like I said, teaching me how to present my dishes nicely and beautifully so that anybody would be enticed to begin. Being on time and being neat and tidy. So these were valuable skills, although it was not culinary. So that was good. But Amaret, my sister, oh God, she could cook. And I always wished I could cook like her, But strange enough, though, she was not my very first memory of actually cooking was I was about maybe 5 or 6 years, standing on an overturned bucket to reach the counter. My two other sisters, Hortensia and Marvelyn, we were frying fish, and I was making the salad at that age, at very young age. So I was standing on that overturned bucket and with a knife, and they would tell me, well, hold that knife properly, don't cut the tail, don't put any blood in the salad, cut the tomatoes this way, no, not this way, but that, so these were my very first memories of cooking. But coming back to Amaret, oh my goodness, she could cook. I mean, she could bake, she could make ice cream, she could make jams, she could, So from her, I got the zeal to begin to try, to make. And then sometimes we would go into very friendly competitions, So I would make something and she'd say, oh, how did you make that? And I would say, oh, I did it this way. So we had a very nice bantering things going on in the kitchen. So it's from there my love for cooking actually started. Then I had two brothers who were, I'm sorry, I don't think they'll be listening. I can call them annoying. So they were very annoying. So I would be cooking and they would come out, what are you making today? It's either two things. It's either slow poison or certain death. Those were the words that they would use to describe my cooking. But again, it's in a very friendly way because, of course, they would always enjoy what I prepared, So growing up in the kitchen among a big family, like I did mention, my family was very big and friendly bantering and arguments and everything else. So it's not just Amaret, but it's a family thing, great friend.
Wow, that's so wonderful. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing those childhood memories with me. Maybe I'm going to jump back to you. So it's a big step, though, to move from, growing up in a household where cooking is such, an integral part, but then to decide to create a cookbook. I mean, that's quite the journey. So what motivated you to write a cookbook about Dominican cuisine in particular?
Yeah. No, I guess I've always been interested in cooking. In Dominica, my mom used to create a lot of events. She used to have a lot of events, host events. Also, whenever anyone would come into the village, my mom was a designated cook. So I have been very close to that experience. And it's something that I appreciated. When I went to Ottawa to school, I became a designated cook as well, cooking for students, having 3 events a year that I called Whispers, one at the Chateau Laurier, and not being able to bring food there, but also cooking at other places where the students knew that, Mayma's house was the house to go to or the place to find the Caribbean meal, because in Ottawa, we didn't really have, back in the day, we didn't have a lot of Caribbean restaurants. So I kind of feel that void, and it was a privilege, and being the last in the family, certainly I wasn't the one that would be given the knife in the first instant. I was the last to learn to cook, but I would say I was the most interested in the process and in learning and experimenting. So that gave me it empowered me to know that I can do this. And then moving to New York, I was always the entertainer. I had a home where I entertained for every occasion, be it the holidays or Easter or Thanksgiving. And my home was a warm home where people could come and fellowship. So it was a natural transition for me to, experience that level of cooking, and at the same time understood that it wasn't only the delivery of the food, but there's always stories behind it. Because with our Dominican culture, cooking is not just the process of putting the ingredients together. It carries much more weight. It carries a historical context that needs to be captured. And when I moved to California, I basically ate a lot at my work. We at work, they feed us 3 meals a day. So I really came home to prepare, long thought out meals for my family. And when the pandemic happened, it was an opportunity for me to kind of take a step back and then to kind of reevaluate my relationship with my kitchen. And with that process, I identified certain groups on Facebook that were engaged in sharing and connecting, because we became so isolated, right? And everybody was in silo during the pandemic. And there was an opportunity for people to come together. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, the community came together through food. And I have to tell you that I felt the most welcome, the most connected in those groups where I was just sharing my foods, and people were always so impressed with my presentation and the recipes that I presented, that I was encouraged to create a cookbook. I started with a blog, just sharing Dominican recipes and the stories behind them and my personal journey with the dishes. And then it's kind of transitioned into something bigger, where I felt that I couldn't keep all this information to myself. I wanted to ensure that we had some type of historical context attached to all the recipes, and something that was nostalgic. And I think with writing, and when we are doing some kind of historical type of writing, it's really important, it's essential to ground the context into something that can make it more tangible. And the food felt so tangible. When I talk about double point, gel cochon, or again, sauce or pilau, I think people have memories of those experiences, and I wanted to help trigger those memories. And so the book didn't really become part of my journey, but it became a journey for Dominicans. And that's why I called it Dominica Gourmet, because I wanted to hone in to the wording that it wasn't the Dominican Republic. This was really about Dominica.
How did you balance honoring the traditional methods of cooking Dominican with catering to a more modern international audience?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because currently I live in a city called Palo Alto, which is right next to Stanford University. And it's a very eclectic mix of people from diverse backgrounds, from different cultures. And the surprising thing, well, not necessarily surprising, but the pleasant experience that I'm having is to highlight our Dominican cuisine in an environment that is just not even, like, Dominica is not even fully on the map in terms of people recognizing our food, and they're driving it more in the context of Caribbean food. So sometimes I want to make sure that I allow our Dominican food to be stars. Like I have done Tonton, because I catered some events here, some faculty at Stanford and some other folks here, have invited me to their homes to prepare our Dominican, and they want the authentic thing. They want the real, true Dominican thing. So what I tend to do is to understand what the community likes. Like, I know they love a lot of great appetizers and, very aesthetically pleasing. And then I try to translate our foods into accommodating that physical look and feel. But then being true to some of the recipes, like I would still use my mortar and pong my tauntaun. I have done dashing tauntaun for Breadfruit tauntaun. Just to ensure that I'm still keeping true to the origins of the recipes, and at the same time elevating them to a space where I feel like when we're looking at an international stage, our recipes can shine.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Daria, I'm going to come over to you. So, you've had a really interesting career path. You moved from IT and corporate management, and then into tourism, and now into food. What inspired you, first of all, to make that sort of transition from IT into cooking?
Okay. After 15, 20 years of working for someone else, it gets boring and you kind of don't see a future. It happens for some, but maybe not for all. But at least for me, I did not see a future working for someone else for the rest of my life. Okay. And so I was IT, in IT, yes. I did go into sales and marketing before I came out of that into tourism. So a number of years I worked, and going to work was fun because at the end of the month, you could get paid and you could pay your bills and whatnot. But generally, you're not very happy, especially if you see, I have 3 kids and I don't see a real future, And so my husband and I were looking for a way out. Okay. He was also in project management at the time, although he had a background in chemical engineering. So we had very different backgrounds, but then we had to bring it into one. So working for someone else, he was in the same predicament as I was. He did not like having to work for someone else all the time like that. And so we decided to break away into tourism. At first, it was like, oh my God, what have we done? Because it was not looking viable at the time when we first started. But we decided to stick with it, and it was a very good thing that we did. So when we first started, it was not into culinary as yet. We were doing culture tourism. We were actually the pioneers of community tourism, eco community tourism. So we started as that, and it was doing very well. And it was upon a trade show. My husband did attend a trade show that one year, and one of the presenters, he was like, I'm so sick of everybody doing this and that, everybody doing the same thing. Why don't you break out into something different? Do something, sewing, cooking. And my husband said, okay, my wife can cook. So he came home and very excited after, I think, a week out. He was very excited that we're going to do this. So we went into culinary tourism. Again, it did not start off very well. Our numbers were very, because we have contracts with the cruise ships, okay? And so you have the contracts. They sell your excursion. They tell you how many bookings you have for the day. Okay, our numbers were like 2, 3, 0, 0. And we were canceling until one day he said, you know what, let's not cancel anymore. Let's find a smaller kitchen and let's work with the 2 and the 3 and the 5. Well, the 2 became 4, the 4 became 6, and then it began to exponentially just increase. And it was a very good thing that we decided to do that. Up to now, we get maximum numbers are 25 for each group. So we get 50 people most of the days that we work. We get 50 people in our kitchen and we do our excursion then. Now, we used to work, yes, in the cruise ships, but then there were private groups that we contracted with us as well. So one of the groups that we did was a group from England. I don't remember the name now, but they would send us a group of 20 people every month. So every month I did not want to do the very same dishes or recipes that I was doing for the cruise with the stayovers. And so I wanted to do something different. So over time, I began experimenting, you know. Um, Most of the times they loved what I did. So I began doing that. And as time went by, I began adding and adding to it with no intention of creating a cookbook, no intention at all. And it was during the pandemic that I figured I have time because we're not going anywhere. All cruise lines have canceled for the next, we don't even know how long. So I figured I have time. And it was from there I decided to go into the cookbook. But the question was, how did I transition into tourism? So yes, the tourism aspect came in when we decided to break out of corporate Dominica and to start working for ourselves.
Amazing. So the pandemic really seems to have been that catalyst for creativity for a lot of people. But you're a creative person in general, and you obviously have a very adventurous spirit. So how do you think your spirit influences your cooking style, or does it influence your cooking style?
Yeah, well, yes, I am very creative. I'll claim that, and then I try to present in the same way. So, um, my style of cooking, basically, first of all, we started with using dishes that were contemporary, Dominican, and then we decided to do our own, break it out into our own, and then to make it different, to make it memorable, which is what I can say we are 5 stars at what we do. To make it memorable, we had to break it down and to add creativity to what we do. So to presenting, we would use. You have not been to my places yet, but we are surrounded by nature. And the guests come, and all they see is green and flowers and a beautiful garden and everything else. So I had to incorporate that from the outdoors to the plate. Okay, so we would use um, edible flowers and leaves, and fruit, and do it in a very different way to present. So we would garnish using what we have readily available from our environment. I mean, doing it, our guests are mainly Americans. So using what they already know would be nothing new, nothing different. So we had to make it Dominica, we had to use our own, So using the hibiscus and the sorrel and using the leaves, the flowers in our garnish, in our dish, making sorrel not just a drink, but a dish, And so we had to be creative, we had to be different. We had to stand out. I must say, when we first started, people thought we were not saying we're going into culinary, but who does that? And when they now see what we do, you're like, yeah, you're good at what you do, So yeah, the environment plays a big role in how we present and what we present.
Wow, that's amazing. I think that it is so important that the food has context, which is what it seems like you're discussing, right? It's that you're not just creating a culinary experience, but it's a holistic experience because they get to absorb nature as well as to use it and to consume it. So that's wonderful, and we're going to come back to that, circle back to that in a bit. Mayma, I just wanted to jump to you before we get down into the nitty-gritty of writing, which is what this show is all about, the writing of the cookbooks. I was wondering if there's one recipe that is in your book that that stands out for you personally. Do you have a favorite child? Is what I'm asking from your book.
I know I talked about this before, but I have to go back to South. And it's one of my favorite recipes because, of course, I lost my mom a few years ago to pancreatic cancer. And this was something that she did religiously every single weekend. And I just feel that sense of connection to her and identifying her as a South lady. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you so much for being so transparent with us.
So this is one of the recipes that it's not only, a classic traditional Dominican recipe, but something that is very dear to me. And I love the ingredients in it. I love, using our lemons or lime and with garlic and onions and making it very spicy because I love pepper. So my sauce is usually more on the spicy side than on the mild side, and my kids love spice. So for them, it's also something that they have adopted as one of a favorite recipe as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we feel your heart. We feel your heart on that. So before we go on, I'm going to give Sam an opportunity to jump in because I've just been going on and on. So Sam, I'm sure you've got some questions for the ladies as well. Our chefs.
I do. Thank you for that, Nicole. I certainly do have a few probing questions. But I'll begin with you, Daria. Writing a cookbook. What kind of research went into your book? Did you rely on, say, mostly family recipes, community recipes, the ones that you heard your elders talk about while growing up and so on, or did you create dishes from your own imagination
Yeah.
and get started that way?
Yes. So as I said, I serviced, I hosted a group from England every month, like I said, and that went on for about 2 years. So I had 2 years of creating authentic area recipes, you know. So yeah, I did that for a while and presenting it again creatively. So it looked good, it tasted good, and it felt like real home. So that's how I really started. I started with my own recipes for, let us say, 50% of the book was mostly my recipes. And then um, I had to include, because the idea was to do both traditional and my own dishes. So I had to use traditional dishes as well. So the mastiff bread and the pilau, I had some of those again in the book. So it began really with my dishes, which I did not want to just forget about. And so having done all that I could from myself, then I went into the traditional dishes.
All right, thank you for that. Mayma, how about you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, growing up in Tebow, it was really, you grew up with the community. And some of the fondest memories that I've had is eating and food, and borrowing from some of the food, or I wouldn't say recipes per se, but the dishes that were prepared in the community was critical for the book, in order to be an authentically Dominican book. But I also do have quite a few of my own recipes included in the book, some of my, which were inspired by Dominica, as well as a lot of the travel that I do around the world. I see opportunities where we could inject some of our Dominican flavors into it, and I certainly grab those moments. So writing the book, really, it was centralized around Dominican cuisine and the traditional recipes that was handed down from my parents, my grandparents. And I went more by, when I was writing the book, trying to recreate the authentic taste. So we have that authentic taste, and I wanted to mirror those tastes, and transitioning over to my recipes, as well as a combination of recipes inspired by my travels.
Yeah, which brings me to another question. How did you decide which recipes to include, which ones to leave out, and was that a difficult process?
Yeah, well, it was a very challenging, because I consulted with a team of Dominicans and said, hey, I have this book and I have 1,000 recipes, 1,000 ideas for dishes. And it was mentioned to me that you can't have every single Dominican recipe. So, and I was like, why? Like, I want to have my cake and eat it too. Like, I threw a tantrum, and then it was impossible, because of course, if you want to create a book that's substantial with hardcover, as well as full bleed with 4-color printing, then you can't really have all the Dominican great recipes. So I kind of had to narrow it down to some of the most
Yeah.
ones. Sorry. So some of the most popular ones. And then I also had to further narrow down to the ones that I could actually recreate. So I tried to recreate, authentic crab backs. However, I didn't have the real Dominican crabs to sample with, and perhaps I could have improvised, but I decided not to. And another one that I really wanted to include was coconut cheese. However, I tried multiple times and I just couldn't get the version that I was trying to create correct. And I abandoned ship on this. So it was really the ones that made it were really well curated. And we felt that, it was representative of our culture, as well as other ones that I could kind of inject to show kind of inspiration, Dominican inspiration.
All right. Thank you for that. Sounds like that was a fun project.
It was.
And Daria, same question. Um, was it hard to leave out some recipes, or did you know from the start which recipes you were going to include in the book?
Okay, most certainly not. I did not know exactly which one to take, which one to leave. Um, it was again during the pandemic, and we were all confined to our homes. Um, Nothing to do, so I went into this. So I started off with what I knew that was easy to create, easy to get the recipes, the ingredients for, because again, we could not go out and shop as we wanted, and it was not very easy. So I began with the easiest ones, and then as time went by, again, we did not know what we were really doing. I must say, when we got all we were doing at the time was just cooking, garnishing nicely, laying out, presenting, taking photos. That's all we were doing. And so every day, I mean, every day, cooking two, three dishes. And then when we decided, okay, let's meet with this person, that person who had already presented books, not cookbooks, but books in Dominica. So we spoke to the different people. I don't want to call names now, but different people who had published before. We went on to them and we asked just how do we go about doing this? And then we got to our publisher, and then he said, okay, you need to have X amount of pages and X amount of, photographs. And okay, so now we're counting how many recipes we have done and how it was, of course, no real idea, but getting a sense of what is going on. And then we sent some photos over, and then they sent the what they call dummy. Is that a word for it? Anyway, like a draft. Sort of.
Yeah.
And then we had an idea, and we were, okay, we have too many recipes. We have too many recipes. So now we have to cut back. Which ones do I cut back? Oh, it was really hard. It was really hard. And
Okay.
then like, no, this one cannot say, oh no, this one has to come in. And my husband is, no, you have to stop now. You have enough. You have to stop. This one. So you know what I did? When they sent the first draft, and I said, now this dish has to go in. So I circumvented my husband. He inserted himself as the manager and the boss, which was fine. I needed a boss at the time. And I went directly to the publisher. I said, you know what, on page number, whatever, we have a full page, a full photo, cut it in half. So I can insert another. He said, are you crazy? I said, no, I need this recipe in. Okay, so this one had to sign in at the very end, and then I had to look at the others that did not make it. I'm so sorry. It was hard. It was hard. Um, but yeah, at the beginning, we did not know what we were doing. We were children playing an adult game. And then in the end, we had guidance of our publisher who really helped us very well. And in the end, we were very happy with it.
That sounds like you did. There's room for a book number two.
Indeed.
Mayma, I want to come back to you for a moment. Food writing often, it requires balance. Balancing precise instructions with cultural storytelling. Um, do you include storytelling in your cookbook, or did you include storytelling in in your cookbook, and how did you approach that balance in your book?
Well, the good thing is every single recipe in the book has a story behind it. Be it a story about growing up in Dominica and experiencing this specific dish, or my family's vacation and encountering a dish that I felt could possibly be converted into a Dominican dish, or it was just, being inspired by going into a store or the people around me. So it was a really good, I think the book is more of a storybook than a very solid cookbook, because the stories help drive like the narrative, and it brings it to life. It brings the narrative of the recipes to life. And people actually reach out to me a lot, via social media, telling me how they connected with a specific recipe because it was nostalgic for them. It brought back memories of growing up, of, having to experience like tambourine ball at school, or something like tablets, and, or being able to identify with having pilau on specific days, Hello? So you do have that connection that's built into the book. I wanted to drive the stories. I wanted to be more of like a like a Dominican legacy of what it meant to have Christmas, and how we celebrated, and when we had cows being killed and having to make foin and black pudding, and what that really meant for the community. So I really hone in on those lived experiences in throughout the book.
And thank you for that. And were there any skills from your background that helped you with the writing process?
Yeah, so I do have a master's degree in sociology, where I'm very versed in cultural identity and being able to connect with communities. And I do understand the cultural significance of food, right? So that really helped me try to be authentic to that experience, in the fact that where I represented the Dominican food value really well in the book, as well as having my background in writing. I mean, I have written two children's books, where I felt the process became a little bit more viable, considering that I had gone through the process already. And writing is something that I'm passionate about. The instructions in the book, yeah, they may not, I tried my best within the time frame I had to ensure that I did fidelity to the process. But of course, no one is perfect, right? So it might not be fully representative of what I exactly wanted to do at the moment. But having a book that's 320 pages, it's a lot to condense into such a short period of time. But having the background with the previous books, having um, the sociology context, having the Dominican experience, and on top of that, being a content designer at Meta, where what I do for a living is write. So that kind of put everything together and created this little ecosystem that made it so possible, and so like, I wouldn't say successful, but it drove a lot of the success that the book has had so far because of all those things coming together.
All right, wonderful. All right. Now, Daria, I want to jump back to you. Um, did you find yourself learning new things about Dominican cuisine um, while researching your cookbook? Of course, even though you grew up with Dominican cuisine.
Um, that's a hard question. I would say no. No, I would say no. There was nothing new that I learned in that process. I honed in all my experience, my background, my family, the surrounding, and I put it into the book. But honestly, at the time, again, researching during the pandemic was not. And first of all, we did it on our own. That's my husband and myself. You know, putting it together. The proofreading came afterwards, and we had to include the wider family and the wider community. Um, so no, the research part was not no. We used what we had, what we already knew. We put it in, and then we included the community in the proofreading part of it. But no, I can say definitely no.
All right, thank you. All right, and for now, I will jump back to Nicole and see, what if she wants to continue this very interesting discussion.
But thank you for remembering me. So, Derry, actually, I wanted to ask you the same question that he asked Mayma, which was about the storytelling. Is storytelling an element in the cookbook?
I'm happy you asked me the question. I was actually anticipating the question from him, but not anyway. But thanks for asking, because when we again put on the first draft, there was just the story. I'll come back to the story. But the guy who did the layout, maybe you know him, Paul Crass. He is used to be a writer and a publisher um, um, for Dominica Tourism. And he said, you know what, area, let's do a little more. You already have the story, but I think every dish should come with a story. And so he said, just one line, just one line. Don't do too much. So every dish that we do, what we did in the book, has a little line of a little background of the dish. So yes, and then I had written a story because everybody always told me you write very well, and I have not really done much with my writing skills. I could do more, but that's another story for another day. I had written a story. Uh, it's called Creole Cooking: How It Must Have Started. Okay, and I used my mother and my aunt, my mother's only sister, as the children in the book, and then of course my grandmother, their mother, and uncles and aunts and their brothers and sisters. So my whole family on my mother's side, they are named in the story. Okay, and so the story is I had to condense it. It is like 3 pages double sided. Okay, so it starts with can I just show a
Yeah.
photo? Can you see a photo of my grandmother's house in La Plaine? Okay, so I set it in La Plaine, Dominica, 1920, in the year 1920. Okay, so that's how far back I went with the history of our local foods. It is a story of my mom and my aunt as children preparing or cooking their first meal for the family at a very young age. So that is the setting, and all of Dominican life on the east of the island in that era, you know. So it is included. And when I wrote the book, the story, again, that was long before not hurricane, pandemic, oh, long before the pandemic. And it was sitting on our computer for the longest while. Don't know what to do with it. And my husband said, "So you're going to include a story in the book?" I'm like, "Oh my God, yes, you know." So the story is in there, and everybody who has, I mean, honestly, my book, I'm glad Mayma's book is doing very well, and I'm happy to say mine is also doing very well. Everybody who has bought my book and read the story, and not just Dominicans, I sell a lot to the tourists who come. He's like, this is interesting. I mean, and then want to ask me questions on the story. I'm like, yeah, that happened many, many, many years ago. You know, so this is a story that I included as part of, because again, it's a whole culture thing. You know, so I added the story and it just adds some more value to the book, to our culture, you know. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Wow. So, I mean, this is an excellent segue into my next question. So, maybe I'm going to jump to you. As Daria has just sort of been describing her storytelling and mingling that with the process of writing, I think cookbooks are about voice as well and style. And would you say that your voice comes through your cookbook or your style? Did you have to develop a voice and a style?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I mean, every single page kind of features my experience with the foods. So in the beginning of the book, there is a historical background of Dominica and our food culture. I talk about the Kalinago people and go into a little bit more detail about our way of cooking and our way of celebrating with food. Then further into the book, I go into all the, like I mentioned, all the personal stories, and those stories are personal to me. So if I didn't really experience it, it's not in the book. So on every recipe, for every recipe, there's at least a few paragraphs of my storytelling, which is more engaging the user or the reader with the recipe and how I connected with it. So I think my voice is, it's throughout the book. You could see the transitions from even from the breakfast foods to the appetizers, and then the meat courses, and how that plays into the historical context of my upbringing in Dominica. So most of the food recipes anchored into childhood memories, where even talking about eating stew pork, what that meant in terms of the villagers gathering, killing pigs for a certain ceremony, a celebration, or during the holidays, right? So every single recipe allows a preview of what my life was at that moment when I experienced that food.
Were there any particular ingredients that were hard to sort of explain, keeping in mind that you've got an international readership here? Were there any dishes that were challenging to sort of translate into a written recipe?
Yeah, no. When I look at some of the recipes like Dumbwe Point and Gel Kosher, or oh, we in Dominica knows it for its pet name, um, and I had to translate that into trying to be authentic at the same time, knowing that the ingredients may not be accessible to users, to readers. It may not be accessible because we have gel cochon, which is mainly found in the Caribbean. I can't even find gel cochon here as much. I find pig's tail, but I can't find the nose or nostril of the of the pig. So what I tend to do was did some substituting. Like I would say, hey, you can have smoked meat, call it, like you can have a substitute for smoked turkey or something along those lines. And I felt like the same for callaloo, where I did highlight that you can use spinach, knowing that a lot of folks might not be able to access callaloo or even the cheddar sheen, like what I mean? So had to make the recipes a little bit more mainstream, um, and identifying substitutes that could stand in authentically for the Dominican version. So yes.
Awesome. So beyond obviously the recipe side of it, there's sort of a cultural continuity, I think, that cookbooks bring. When, for example, I mentioned The Art of Caribbean Cooking by Yolan Kuzlati, Daria immediately knew what I was talking about, because that's become part of our culinary heritage. And is that your opinion? Do you see your work as preserving Dominica's cultural heritage for future generations?
Oh, great question. Um, I see the book definitely adding more of a historical context, because the recipes are grounded in the experiences we had, and those experiences are not unique to me. They're unique to a lot of people in my generation, right? That have experienced like a Christmas, or experienced black cake in that context, or experienced soup in the context, or pumpkin soup, especially between Christmas and New Year. You know what I mean? So it is, I see it as a cultural, like a continuity of our food history, because it captures those moments, especially for kids who are transnationals or people who are not within who do not have a daily life in Dominica, where they may be a little bit removed from that experience, they can connect using the book and identify perhaps what their parents experience. I know when my kids read the book, when they read the book, they were impressed with some of my childhood and what that meant, how I connected to the foods, and having the appreciation for the food itself. I think is critical for our future generations to identify, okay, where did this come from, or how did we experience it, or what did it meant to our families, having to experience the food in such a specific way. Like I talk about the snacks we ate during recess, right? That's not just unique to me, but a whole lot of kids in Dominica had experiences with the recess people who came to the school to sell, right? So I wasn't selfishly trying to make it a Mayma experience, but certainly a Dominican lived experience that anyone can appreciate. And it might even be a Caribbean experience.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. So, Sam, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Uh, um, so I'm going to come to you again, Daria. How much testing, retesting of recipes did you go through um, during the process of putting your book together?
Okay, again, I have a very vibrant audience on almost a daily basis throughout the cruise season. So whatever I present has to be already tested. And so I did not do it just for the book. It was already done, you know? So every day I have a group coming and we're doing, let's say, 3 or 4 dishes, 5 dishes. They have gone through the process, you know? So it was easy just to take it from the script that I had already prepared, in saving the recipes for future use, just taking it from there and bring it to the kitchen, getting the ingredients, preparing it, photographing it, and setting it aside for the book. So I didn't have to go through another testing phase. Okay, that had already.
Okay, thanks. Now, looking back, um,
Mhm.
what would you say was the most rewarding and the most challenging parts of turning your love for cooking into a published book?
Rewarding. Rewarding. I am every time I look at the book, I'm happy. It makes me happy. So I feel good at what we have done with such limited resources, limited help as well, because just the two of us in the kitchen. Um, but to me, the result is for me is not just me. Everybody has got my book, even if they don't buy it. This is really good. So it's been rewarding. The challenge, uh, again, working through the pandemic with limited resources, I guess. So there was a challenge and there's a reward at the very same time, Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there is a reward in looking at what we created with such limited resources. But actually doing it with the limited resources was a challenge.
Mm, okay, yeah, I understand. All right. Mayma, coming to you, what did you enjoy about the process of putting your book together, and what most challenged you?
Yeah.
What frustrated you? I think is you know. Uh,
Yeah, no, those are great questions. I would have to say the most rewarding, because sometimes when you're working on a book, you work in silo. You're working and you're hoping that the results will be what your expectations are, right?
mhm,
So just going through the process, and I took all my photos. I staged all my food, and I had been doing it for a while on my blog as well as sharing on my Facebook page. So I did have those images already, but just having to curate all of them and having to write all the stories that connected to every single recipe for 320-page book, I think it was pretty challenging because I did it all on my own. I was the photographer, I was the cook, I was the the person who did the layout, in terms of, how the food was presented. And then I had to write all the stories behind, and then I had to write the recipes, and I had to also test the recipes that I wrote, because in my head, when we're cooking in Dominica, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and what I mean. I mean, Daria is lucky that she had that process built into what she already offered, but I'm a home cook, so what I normally do for my family is just sprinkle a dash of love, and bam, we have food. But then I wanted to ensure that the taste was what I was remembered in my childhood. So for instance, when I did the potato pudding recipe, I just thought about this woman from Tebow that I mentioned in the book, and her name was Makato. And her potato pudding brought back so many lovely memories that I still to this day just mention potato pudding. And I remember the exact experience that I had in Tebow, bringing my 25 cents to get my potato pudding, right? I'm sure now it's more expensive. And I wanted to recreate that experience when I tasted my very own potato pudding. So I did do a lot of trials to get the texture correct, to get the consistency, and to ensure like the color, everything was what it was meant to be. So I find that I went through the process of, triggering my memory and trying to ensure that I did due diligence to that process. So the most rewarding of all this, I have to say, was the hundreds of people who reached out, just expressing their love for the book and how they connected to it. It's not really about me. I feel like I was doing something bigger for the community, because I have to tell you, the book is priced so low. It's only $25 US for 320 page, 20 page of hardcover, full color book. I mean, that's a steal. I've been told that it's too cheap, but I did it for the culture. I did it for the community. And I'm not going to get rich on the book. Definitely not. But I know that many years from now, my kids' generation will look back and realize that there was something that was truly unique to Dominican cooking experiences. And hopefully they can get that feeling from reading my book.
Yeah, I have to agree. $25 is pretty cheap for a book that size and with all the color and everything. So at Meta, you work on humanizing technology through content.
Yes.
So do you see a connection between designing digital user experiences and crafting a cookbook?
No, absolutely. I think once you're in that field of design, you have that aesthetic eye that you want to ensure that the user has a good experience with the book. I mean, from the book itself, just touching the book, I'll just show you. The book is pretty big, right? And it's textured on the writing, like Dominica Gourmet, there's a texture to it, right? And we have a jacket because I wanted to bring that aesthetic feel to it. And the jacket is pretty thick. It's not just a lightweight. And then, of course, the glossy cover of the cookbook. So the book does lend itself to that aesthetic feel that, like it could recreate into a digital component that makes it very viable and on an international scale, where when a user interacts or a reader interacts with the book, they have that same experience that we would perhaps have on the platform. So that was critical to me. And I do have a very creative mind, and I've been creating stuff from a very young age, with my hands. So the book is just an extension of that creativity and ensuring that, I'm authentically Dominican in that process, as well as bringing something that a wider audience can connect with.
Yeah. All right, cool. Very cool. And looking ahead, do you see yourselves blending your culinary storytelling with your work in technology even further, and perhaps through digital cookbooks, apps, or interactive experiences?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that goals that I set for myself, which was supposed to happen last year, was to create a digital version of the book, because a lot of the younger generation is certainly wanting something like this. So I've been working on this, and it should be ready by end of year, or within the next few weeks or months. Um, I also see myself lending an eye to ensuring that we're represented in AI. I do work in AI as well for my company. And I think that there is a huge gap within how our recipes converted into AI, into technology, right? So driving that authentic recipe and driving the authenticity of the book will certainly help it scale better when there's data engineering done within the context of books and storytelling. Because what's the bigger picture here is not just a book that is accessible through like an Amazon storefront, but also a book that's accessible through different online channels, and being able to convert from one medium to the next, or to convert from just having the data inputted into our LLM systems is critical for us ensuring that even within the field of AI, we do have representation and we do have authentic representation. So when someone searches on ChatGPT or any of the other AI platforms out there for Dominican cooking or Dominican cuisine or whatever that is, we want to ensure that we are well represented and our books actually do show up, and our recipes are on the front line of telling our story.
Very good, very good. And so let me jump back over to the pass it over to Nicole, and then so we can continue. Nicole?
So yeah, so we're wrapping up right now, but Daria, I do want to come back to you. So you've run Cooking with Daria food experiences for about 2 decades, right? And I'm just wondering, how have you maintained that 5-star rating over such a period of time? What do you think what's the key to your success?
You know, when you do things over and over again, you get good at it, right?
Mm.
And so from day one, like I said, my mom was not a great cook, but she taught me very good, very important lessons of presentation, the way I present myself, the dishes, the way you speak, the thing. I remember my mom telling me that everything that passes through your mind that should come through your mouth. You know, some things you hold back. You know, so the way you speak and the things that you say. So we get groups that are they are very diverse. Some groups are very loud. Some people are very chatty. Some people can sing anything they want to because they're on vacation. And I have to remember, okay, everybody's on vacation, but you're at work. So, you know, to maintain some professionalism. So we do that. Um, Maintaining 5 stars is everything combined. Okay, show up for work. For example, if there's a party the night before, I do food. Okay, I want to look fresh. I want to look bright. I want to look clean and nice. You know, so I can't show up looking sleepy. I can't. All right. I can't be looking tired. I can't be dragging myself to work because everybody's on vacation and they were drinking the night before. I cannot do that. So everything that I do has to be the best that it possibly can. My father was the first person to tell me anything that has to be done, do it well, do it right, do it 100%, get full marks. He was a school principal, so topping the class and everything else was him. Okay, that's what he wanted, excellence in everything. So I tell my staff the very same thing. If a guest is asking something that sounds ridiculous to you, you don't tell them no. You tell them, speak to Derek. Okay? And I will speak to them in a way that, you know, are you sure you really want to ask for that question? You know what I mean? So you have to keep the guests happy, but you have to draw a line at professionalism and when you cross the line, you let them know that you're nice. So I only got one, like 4 stars, I think 1.5 stars on one day because one person went around and pricking the roses before the classes started. You know, he I allow my guests about 5-10 minutes go outside, take some photos, get used to the elevation, and enjoy the garden for a little while before we come in, we wash our hands and we start. And he went around and he's pricking the roses, I'm saying pricking the roses, but pushing his hand against the thorns. And then he comes to me bleeding. And I said, but why would you do that? I mean, are you looking for a reduction in price? Are you looking for a refund? Why would you do that? I'm seeing him doing that, you know. So on that day, I kind of not lost it, but I was not happy with him, and he knew it. I think he gave me 4.5 stars. So in my almost when I'm thinking 18 years, that was the only day I did not get 5 stars, you know. But I had at once a form that I would let everybody sign at the end. You know, did you enjoy it? You know, what grade do you give us? What recommendation would you give for, or suggestion would you give for improvement? And everybody would say, oh, please don't keep your thing. Everybody has to 100%, 100%. I said, no, no, no. I really need to know if we need to improve in any area we do not like. Let me know. Area, stop wasting our time. Everything is 100%. Tick, 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 tick. You know, and that's how my guests respond when I ask questions about our performance on that day. Okay, my staff, again, cleaned, well uniformed. Everything is, you know, everything I do, I try my best to do it as good as possible so that I maintain the 5 stars. I'm proud of my 5 stars and I intend to keep it.
But congratulations on achieving it, especially under those kind of
Thank
odd
you.
circumstances. And
Yeah, that was all.
it just goes to show you how great the experience was that he still had to give you 4.5 stars. He couldn't go any
There
lower
you
than
go.
that. So,
There you go.
so when they come to you, what do you want them to take away from the experience when they're returned to the cruise ship, when they're back home and they're telling friends? What is it you're hoping that they really gain from the experience of cooking with Daria?
Okay, first of all, we try to use as much local as possible. So if there's probably one or two ingredients, for example, milk would be the one ingredient that is imported, and sometimes tomato paste, because sometimes I make my own tomato paste. And so I try to make everything 100% as much as possible local, okay? And then we present it in a very different way. So that is one thing that the Caribbean cooking, I always speak about Caribbean cooking, not just Dominican, but Caribbean. And then, so that is number one, that our food in the Caribbean is not just, you know, I don't know how they see us from on their end, but when they come here, certainly I want to change the mindset to a very positive one. Okay. Then I try to do our culinary excursions in a very fun way. Yeah. So we have a lot of jokes. We do a lot of storytelling too. They ask me a lot of personal questions and I answer. You know, so the intention is that they go back and then they bring in the whole family. So they may come as a couple or a solo traveler, which I do. And the intention is they go back and then they return, and I get many returning guests with their family so that the tradition continues, that the numbers are always high, and the fun and the excitement and the love for Dominica on a whole. You know, we don't only do the culinary tour, we do other exhibitions as well. And so I don't just speak about food, I speak about Dominica. And so I send them, you know, happy. I send them back. Oh, I come back with my family because the last time we had such a good time. I did that all the time, you know.
Wow,
So yeah.
that's wonderful. And it's when they come and you have a first time guest, is there a particular dish that you always sort of start with? What's the first dish you recommend to them?
No, the type of cooking that we do, it's like a communal thing. So we all participate in presenting a meal for the day. So it's not like just separate dishes scattered all over the place. Everything comprises the meal, you know. So we begin with a welcome drink, and it's always local fruit grown on the property. So you would have the fruit, the drink, we serve the drink. This is what you're drinking. So we show them it. Sometimes we blend different fruits. These are the fruits that comprise the drink that you have. So to me, the response is always, "Oh my God, really? It tastes so good," you know. So it's not just separate dishes all over the place, you know. So it is like tailored into one experience. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Maybe I'm going to come over to
Mhm.
you because I want to congratulate you on being asked to create a culinary feature for the 25th anniversary of the World Creole Music Festival. So I'm gathering that this is not the first VVIP experience that you've curated, But I mean, certainly it must be very significant to be asked to do this one, which is the 25th anniversary. Can you give your fans sort of a hint as what they can expect in
I
this very,
wish,
very important section?
I last year I had the honor of doing just that, and I guess every year it changes. So the first year they did it, they had a pig. The second year there was sushi. The third was different cuts of meats. And last year I did it. I did a grazing table. So that grazing table included cutfish balls and cheeses and fruits, and so it was an eclectic mix of local and international flair to create more of a heightened experience that everybody could kind of engage in. I also had mastiff bread, which is really good because I got it from Suki's, which is like
Oh,
renowned, mastiff bread producers on the island. So that was kind of nice. This year, it's a little bit of a secret, unfortunately.
oh, come on.
But I have to say, I'm going to be leaning into the Kalinago people for support for this one. So,
Wow.
yes. So, because, it's 25 years, it's something that is like a huge milestone, for the country and for the folks who put on this experience. So, I wanted to ensure that our idea for this was aligned. I brought the idea to the team, and they, first off, just loved it. And we're rolling with the idea, and I'm praying that we can execute this grand idea because it's for 500 people plus. So it's there's a lot of pressure there, to ensure that not only it looks good but also tastes good as well.
Well, it sounds very intriguing, and I certainly hope that for those of us who won't be there, that there'll be lots of pictures and videos and things so that we can get to appreciate the experience too. So,
Yes.
congratulations again, and yeah, can't wait to see what that looks like. So, Sam.
All right, Nicole, thank you. So, final question, Daria, you get the final question this evening. Looking ahead, what's next in your culinary cultural adventures or creative adventures? What can fans look forward to from you?
Okay. If you were to ask my husband that question, he'll give you a very different answer than I'm going to give you. He has the idea that maybe we're not really aligned as yet, So I just came back from my travels, my vacation. Well, it's a working vacation where I did a week in Italy and a week in Greece doing the culinary, yeah, Italian and Greek culinary dishes. So I want to do something to allow my Dominican folks to savor those different um, the dishes from different countries. I have ideas on how I want to do it. I'm also working with my the chefs I work with in the two countries. They have ideas, and so like I said, I just came back. But ever since I was there on the territory, the ideas came. And since I got back, I'm thinking about it more. I'm seeing how we can do this. Like I said, it's still in the thought stage. It's not really nothing yet. I'm concrete. So, but this is where I'm leading to do like a Greek night or an Italian night or a French night. Since I've been on those three, I've done a week course in each of these countries. So that's very really a lot of thought has to go into it to make it a bang from day one. And because it will not be just a one night only, we will be. I'm saying it's an evening thing. So that's where I am for now. What my husband is saying is going back to Zoom cooking and not sure yet.
Well, it sounds like you have a couple of different things to work with, and I kind of like the idea of broadening the Dominican palette.
Yes.
Introducing the people to different types of foods from international recipes. So again,
Mhm.
thank you. and I will jump back to Nicole. And
Well, ladies, Daria and Mayma, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for sharing your gifts with us and being so open and transparent about the cookbook process. We know it could not have been easy, but you both have produced cookbooks that you can be very proud of and that are now part of Dominica's culinary heritage. Thank you, both of you, for promoting Dominica's cuisine to the world. And of course, now after all that talk about sauce and toto and dombwe, everybody is hungry and drooling and waving. So I think it's time for us to kind of wrap things up now. Thank you so much for being with us, ladies. Any final words? Mayma, we'll jump over to you.
Sure. No, I just want to say thank you so much. And to the Dominican literacy community, I appreciate the work that you guys are putting in and trying to ensure that we do have a voice when it comes to literacy and book publishing and writing and reading. And I wish you guys the best success with your festival. And I do hope someday, we can have this festival live where we can all gather and do a panel discussion. And I would love to be part of anything that you were doing. And now that I know that you guys are fruitful and you exist and you need the support of the diaspora, I'll be more than happy to connect with you folks. And thank you for having me on the show. And Daria, it was so nice getting to know you. I've just seen you on Facebook, but I have a totally profound respect for what you do, and just keep on doing the hard work on the ground and highlighting Dominican cuisine as much as you're doing, and continue to do your best. And Sam, all the best to you and your family. And Nicole, thank you so much for reaching out and for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And of course, if we ever did, take this virtual festival to Dominica on the ground, we would love to have you both cater. So, Daria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It really was a pleasure. Really was a pleasure. And remember, I must tip my hat to you because I don't know how you do it, catering for so many people. Because that's something I always said when I went into the culinary field, was not to cater for so many people. I just don't know how you do it, but you do it very well. And I must say congratulations to you and to Nicole and Sam. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you had me a little nervous for the whole week.
It wasn't so bad, right? It wasn't so bad.
No, it was really, I had fun. It was good. But just the anticipation of, okay, that is not me. This is just not me, so it really was not so hard. So, thanks for having me, and all the best to you in your future endeavors.
well,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And thank you, listeners and viewers. And on behalf of Sam, final words.
Let's eat. You all have me hungry. All this talk about food.
Yes.
Have a great one, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Go eat.